The Washington Commanders have a better pass defense than a run defense, statistically. But I would argue that a large percentage of the reason that they have a good pass defense is because they have played a very easy schedule, specifically the number 2 easiest schedule of opposing pass offenses on the season. From week 7 onward, they have played just one team that ranks above average in pass efficiency, and that was the Eagles. And in one of those games, they played Kenny Pickett the vast majority of the game. The other passing attacks that they faced from week 7 onward are the number 1 easiest schedule of passing attacks in the NFL. I got a graphic for you. Let's look at a listing. When you see this in front of your face, it's going to just blow your mind. If we can move that banner, there you go. Of the quarterbacks and the efficiency that the Commanders pass defense has played. So the number 30 Carolina Panthers with Andy Dalton leading them. That was the game before he was benched again. Then the Chicago Bears with obviously a rookie quarterback in Caleb Williams. That passing attack this year ranked 24th was terrible. Daniel Jones led the number 31 ranked New York Giants. Terrible. Russell Wilson, obviously the Pittsburgh Steelers made the playoffs. That was in week 10. They're the 18th, so still not above average. Philadelphia with Jalen Hurts, they were the 14th. Obviously, Philadelphia had success in that game. Then you go number 29, Dallas with Cooper Rush, who's a backup. Number 26, the Tennessee Titans passing attack with Will Levis, who ultimately was benched multiple times during the season. Number 21, New Orleans Saints passing attack, but they're number 21 in part because they had Derek Carr earlier on in the season. The Commanders got to face a couple guys. They got Jake Haener, who's a backup, and Spencer Rattler, who's a rookie backup. They got to face both of those guys. Number 14, Philadelphia, with the vast majority of passes coming from Kenny Pickett. I want to say that Jalen Hurts threw 3 passes in that game before getting his concussion, maybe even less than that. Then, of course, you get to go and host Michael Penix Jr. in week 17, which was, I believe, his first start. Maybe it was his second start, his first road start that he ever had. And then, of course, week 18, no, you don't get to face Cooper Rush again. The Cowboys benched Cooper Rush. They went with Trey Lance to check out Trey Lance, who's third string journeyman quarterback at this point. So the Commanders have not played almost anybody with a pulse. No quarterback with a good passing attack have they played. You would argue since week 11, which is eons ago at this point. But Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles, they're just the 14th best passing attack. They're not even top 10. Last week, the Commanders finally played a passing attack that has a pulse in Baker Mayfield and the Bucs. Mayfield didn't have a lot of passing attempts, but he completed 15 of 18 for 185 yards. It was his highest success rate passing the football since he became a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. He was especially effective with getting rid of the ball quickly. 9 of his 10 quick passes resulted in a successful play. One of the key matchups in this game is the Commanders blitzing. They blitz at the 8th highest rate, and Jared Goff has not been very good versus the blitz this season. From week 9 onward, if he's not blitzed, Jared Goff is number 1. If he is blitzed, he drops to number 17 in EPA per attempt. If he's not blitzed, he ranks number 1 in yards per attempt at 9.0. But if he is blitzed, that drops down to number 25 at 6.4. He's number 2 in completion rate when he's not blitzed at 74%. He's number 13 in completion rate when he is blitzed at 63%. So this is one area that I believe if you're looking for an edge, a glimmer of hope when Washington's on defense, it's blitzing Jared Goff potentially, causing quick chaos. And the Washington Commanders do blitz a lot. The problem is they play a ton of man, especially on third down, and the rate of man coverage has increased. They have upped their rate since week 12 to 32% man coverage on early downs. That is the 7th most man coverage in the NFL. On third downs, they're playing man on 58% of their dropbacks. Last week, against the Bucs on third down, they played man coverage on 67% of their dropbacks. The problem with playing man at anywhere close to that rate is Jared Goff is the best quarterback in the planet at man coverage when he goes up against it. He ranks number 1 in EPA per attempt, number 1 in success rate, number 1 in completion rate, and number 2 in yards per attempt on third downs versus man coverage. So, one of the keys is for when you're talking about Washington and that defense and how to slow down the Lions offense when you're going into Detroit in a hostile environment. It's pretty much typical for most teams. Force him into third down, beat them in third down, get off the field. And like I said, Washington loves to play a lot of man on third down, and Jared Goff is the best quarterback on earth on third down against man. So that's a big dilemma for Dan in terms of the Washington Commanders and how they're going to come up with a philosophy and a strategy to deal with them. You say, okay, well, we got to force them to third down. How are we going to do that? Well, we've got to be good on early downs. We've got to stop the run. We got to slow down. David Montgomery's coming back, and Jahmyr Gibbs is obviously there. One issue is that Washington ranks 28th versus outside zone, and Detroit runs the ball a lot in outside zone. So Washington's the fifth worst against it. I know Washington's defense, I mentioned this earlier, they are not very good defending the run. They're better against the pass statistically, but I have issues with their strength of schedule. Detroit has punted the ball at the lowest rate in the league. This is it's like a battle of who can be the biggest Dan in this game. You've got Dan Campbell, who started out not wanting to punt the ball a lot, and you got Dan Quinn coming in trying to be like Dan Campbell and not punt the ball a lot. And you got these two Dans going head to head to see who can punt the ball less in this game. And if you look, Washington is second in lowest punt rate in the league. So you literally have the team that punts the ball the lowest rate against the team that punts the ball at the second lowest rate going head to head in this game. And yes, you can bet on how many punts will be in this game. The line was 6.5. I'm not sure what it has moved to right now. I like the under, obviously, 6.5. But I think the last I checked it had been bet all the way up to -180, -185. I'm not sure if it's still in that neighborhood or not. Jayden Daniels does lead the NFL in scramble rate when blitzed and in scramble rate against man coverage. So that's something to be aware of. Obviously, Washington, we know they like to use his legs. They don't have to try to use his legs. He's going to be using his legs because this is what he does against man. This is what he does against the blitz. And the Lions lead the NFL in man and in blitz. They're sending the house as often as possible, and they're playing man behind it as often as possible. We know that in last game against the last big game for the Detroit Lions, they played the Minnesota Vikings and they won that game and they got the bye. Now that game doesn't look quite as good for their defense, given the fact that Minnesota's offense melted last week in the playoffs in the wild card round against the Los Angeles Rams. But the point is that this defense of the Detroit Lions got away with a lot of holding in that man coverage in the secondary against the Minnesota Vikings. They could have thrown flag on 25% of those pass plays because of the way that the Lions were getting away with holding in the secondary with that tight man coverage. It's up to the refs to call it. And we're going to ask Joe later on in the show, is the ref and his crew likely or not likely to call defensive holding or defensive pass interference in the Washington Commanders versus Detroit Lions game? And if I forget to ask him that, you guys in the chat, make sure that you point that out because we need to talk to Joe about that. So, this game is going to be a fun game. I think you're going to get a lot of Jayden Daniels moving around on the ground, but that's one of the biggest matchups, in my opinion, is Detroit in third down. If the Commanders can be fortunate enough to force them into third down, what is Dan Quinn going to play? Are they going to play a lot of man and they're going to blitz a lot? Because that really feeds into something that Jared Goff does extremely well. So then the question is, did Jared Goff perform well against it at home in this spot and take the Lions to the NFC Championship game again?